Hello, I'm Alexandra Harrison of Supporting Child Caregivers, and today I'm going to be discussing how to talk to your child about the COVID-19 pandemic and other difficult subjects. Most of you have already had a chance to speak to your child about the pandemic, but still questions might arise, and I will talk about some of the concerns that parents have brought to me. My thoughts will be pertinent not only to the subject of the pandemic, but to other worrisome subjects as well. Because, as in many other cases, the pandemic offers us the opportunity to think deeply about difficult subjects that we need to have conversations with our children about, such as divorce, or the illness or death of a family member, or even moving to another house. Now I would like to tell you about several guidelines I have for talking to children about difficult subjects. The first is to be truthful, the second is to be brief, and the third is to use words that the child can understand. I'm going to go over them one at a time. First of all, truth is very important. We all know that trust in a leader, in this case the parent, is essential in order to manage fear. And trust is undermined if the parent's information is ambiguous or contradictory or frankly untruthful. And then, brevity, being brief, is important for several reasons. The first is that effective communication is organized into salient bullets that then can be elaborated. If the listener is a young child or even an older child who is under stress, it may be hard to take in complicated information and make sense of it, and comprehension is made easier, is facilitated when the most important ideas are emphasized with pauses in between. These pauses allow the child to process the information and ask questions of their own. And the child will let you know if they've had enough information, if they don't want to hear any more, because they won't ask questions and they will allow the conversation to stop. But when answering these questions, it's important to follow the same guidelines and to avoid overly long and complex explanations. The third guideline is to choose words the child can understand that are appropriate for the child's developmental age. And it's preferable to avoid using technical terms unless you're talking to an older child, and to avoid using overly alarming words. So that, for example, you might talk to a younger child about avoiding getting sick instead of using the words disease or pandemic. In some cases, though, some children are unusually worried about getting sick, and they might also worry that they will cause their grandparents to get sick. And in those cases, you will want to be especially careful when you talk to them about the necessity of taking precautions such as wearing a mask or social distancing. And you might want to give explicit reassurance. But in any case, it's important, according to the general guidelines, to be truthful. So you can be truthful and vague. You cannot promise the child that nobody in the family will get sick, but you can tell the child that you will keep them safe. Now, in addition to these guidelines, I want to emphasize the importance of the parents managing their own anxiety. Most parents will attempt to hide their worries from their children, and it's good to avoid burdening children from your anxiety, and this is true if you're anxious about other subjects as well, such as getting a divorce or telling your child you'll have to move to another house. However, video observation research demonstrates that we communicate emotion through facial expression in intervals of 1 second or split seconds. And so, in other words, it's unrealistic that we could hide our emotions from our children. And a more effective and practical alternative is for parents to focus on managing their own emotions, much like the airline's admonition that we put the oxygen mask on ourselves first before we put it on our children. Well, we have to think, though, about how parents can manage their own emotions. And everyone does better, of course, with enough sleep and exercise. And also I recommend that parents think about what methods are most useful to them in order to feel calmer, what are more useful to them in managing stress. So some people manage anxiety by reading everything they can get their hands on about a particular subject that makes them worry. Others do better by avoiding reading anything. Some people comfort themselves by staying busy, others by taking a break. Some people find reading novels and cleaning and baking and cooking to be comforting. Repetitive rhythmic motor activity, such as walking, is very good for managing anxiety. And if you're inside, knitting or crocheting, that kind of repetitive rhythmic movement is also comforting. Very important is talking to supportive family members or friends, and I recommend that parents do this every day when they can. And finally, emphasizing matter-of-fact routine behaviors is grounding to everybody. We know that the CDC recommends hand washing and coughing into your elbow, or maintaining social distances, keeping surfaces disinfected. You can do all of these routines at home in a non-alarmist way. So children, for example, learn how to cough into their elbow, and children can learn how to wash their hands very carefully, and even they can clean surfaces along with you. But, of course, I don't recommend maintaining social distancing in families unless a family member is infected, because in these difficult times, children probably need as much physical comfort as possible. Thank you for listening.